Greetings, Knowledge Seeker, and welcome to Conan References in Conan Exiles Part 12. Before we go on, know that spoilers are battering down the gates and will be here imminently. There was no life in the abyss, save that which was incorporated in me, it told. Nor was there light, nor motion, nor any sound. Only the urge behind and beyond life guided and impelled me on my upward journey. Blind, insensate, inexorable. Through ages upon ages and the changeless strata of darkness I climbed. Excerpt from The Devil in Iron by Robert E. Howard. What Khosatral Khel was saying in that quote is that he willed himself into taking physical form. Very much like Dr. Manhattan from the Watchmen film. Khosatral, however, unlike the Blue Doctor, had chosen to construct himself out of materials that people are not usually made from. But human flesh was too frail, too paltry to hold the terrific essence that was Khosatral Khel. So he stood up in the shape and aspect of a man, but his flesh was not flesh, nor the bone, bone, nor blood, blood. He became a blasphemy against all nature, for he caused to live and think and act a basic substance that before had never known the pulse and stir of animate being. His skin was impervious to earthly weapons, as evidenced by a scene at the beginning of the story when a XII fisherman tried to stab him, or later on in the story when Conan himself took a swipe at Khosatral, but the keen edge had rung on the mighty body as on an anvil, rebounding without cutting. Now, because Khosatral Khel is basically a self-made construct, one way he is referenced in Conan Exiles is by you being able to craft your own humanoid constructs out of stone or metal. To do so, Knowledge Seeker, you must first find Master Carver Huang. He can teach you golem shaping, and you can find him here. Master Huang can also sell you superior golem parts that a neonate such as yourself cannot even hope to craft. For the next references, we have to go back to The Devil in Iron towards the end of the story, where Conan had a final confrontation with Khosatral Khel. Shifting his reddened scimitar to his left hand, he drew the great half-blade of the XII. Khosatral Khel was towering above him, his arms lifted like mauls, but as the blade caught the sheen of the sun, the giant gave back suddenly. But Conan's blood was up. He rushed in, slashing with the crescent blade, and it did not splinter. Under its edge, the dusky metal of Khosatral's body gave way like common flesh beneath a cleaver. From the deep gash flowed a strange ichor, and Khosatral cried out like the dirging of a great bell. His terrible arms flailed down, but Conan, quicker than the archers who had died beneath those awful flails, avoided their strokes and struck again and yet again. Khosatral reeled and tottered. His cries were awful to hear, as if metal were given a tongue of pain, as if iron shrieked and bellowed under torment. And here comes the tricky part. This part of the story where Conan defeats Khosatral Khel is referenced in Conan Exiles in 3 different ways. The first reference: the knife used by Conan was forged out of a meteor that fell into a far valley. In other words, the weapon is made of star metal. And Khosatral's weakness to star metal is referenced in-game by the fact that golems take more damage from star metal weapons. The second reference: the weapon itself, the half-blade that Conan used to end Khosatral Khel, can be found in Conan Exiles, rarely in the exiled lands, and comparatively more often on Siptar's Isle. The blade is called the Bane of Khosatral Khel. The third reference. The first part of that excerpt mentioned earlier is quoted in the description of the Bane of Khosatral Khel. As a quick side note, while the weapon that ended Khosatral is repeatedly referred to in the devil in iron as a dagger or knife, and occasionally as half-blade and as a crescent blade, you might have noticed that the Bane of Khosatral-Khel in Conan Exiles is a one-handed sword. I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect that the reason for that is because there are no single dagger weapons in Conan Exiles, only dual daggers. And it must have been easier for the Conan Exiles developers to add this weapon as a sword instead of creating a new weapon category and animation sets for single daggers. Moving on. Before the final reveal, please take a moment to like and subscribe. This last one is a much less obvious one. The reference is the fact that the Bane of Khosatral-Khel has resurfaced in the exiled lands after it was last mentioned in The Devil in Iron. This references a technique used by Robert E. Howard in his works to have something appear in one story and then reappear in an unrelated story, thus creating what we would call today a shared universe. To give a specific example of this related to part 1 of this series, in The Phoenix on the Sword, a story set in the prehistoric time known as the Hyborian Age, where we are first introduced to the Black Ring, also known as the Serpent Ring of Set, and the being that was summoned using it. These two elements, the ring and the being, reappear in Robert E. Howard's The Haunter of the Ring, a story which is set several ages after the Hyborian Age in 1930s America, and it features occult investigator John Kirawan. The rest of the story is for you to discover, if you so choose. That's all for now. Remember to declare your allegiance by hitting like and subscribe.
Live, love, burn with life, slay and survive. We will meet again, dead man.